Okay, morning to all the Yiddish Kinder. Good morning, Avremi from Baruch Shlita. Eli Melech Meli. Thank you so much for joining us. Okay, Chevre. We're at the bottom of page 238. We're at the bottom of page 238. We're talking about the interface. We're talking about the meeting between Shema and Shemona Esrei. What do we know about the meeting between Shema and Shemona Esrei? That Shema is called Lahamshech Ha'ora Mimakoira Dekoila. Shema means to bring down godliness from its root, so to speak, from the Eibishter himself. And Shemona Esrei means that Acha Shekvar Nimshach Ha'ora Zu B'chlal. After bringing down this light in a way of klal. In Krishma, on a mamshichim giluya bepratios b'chala yud, we then bring down this godliness in a specialized, in a tailored way in Shemona Esrei. So in a certain aspect, Kriya Shema is much higher than Shemona Esrei, because Kriya Shema is like the idea of Mesiras Nefesh, Ratzu. And Shemona Esrei is only bringing the light into the vessels. But when you think of it in terms of why the Eibishter created the world, it's not so simple, because it is about bringing Hashem into the world. So let's read 5 lines from the bottom of page 238. I'm reading inside. Bevakasha. Chabad. 5 lines from the bottom of page 238. Oh, by the way, it's important for me to say this. Tomorrow morning, I should have a situation that's a little bit uncertain. So I'm going to cancel tomorrow's class. Okay, tomorrow is Wednesday. Tomorrow, Wednesday, there is no class, but the Mitzvah Hashem Thursday, there will be a class. Okay, I have to say this very emphatically because I don't want to lose you. Tomorrow morning, Wednesday, which is test time, I'm skipping because of a personal thing, but I'll be back on Thursday, Yud Tammuz Mitzvah Hashem. Okay? It says, hey, look at Advorim. Let's explain this healing. It says in Kabbalah, that every single day mamish there is something which is me'ein Reish Hashanah, which is similar to Rosh Hashanah. The Rebbe wants to tell us, and I'm going to get to the chase, I'm not going to waste your time, that Krishma is to the day what shofar is to the year. Why do we blow shofar Rosh Hashanah? We blow shofar Rosh Hashanah because we want Hashem to be our king. Why do we want Hashem to be our king? Because he quit. Because Erev Rosh Hashanah he resigned, and Rosh Hashanah will renew the kingship. This is if I wanted to be cynical, I would say, this is a choreography, this is a dance, which plays out every year. Of course, there's a lot of Chassidus, there's a lot of Kabbalah to it, and of course, underneath it all, there's the idea that every year on Rosh Hashanah, when we make him a king again, it's on a higher level than we made him a king the year before. But every Rosh Hashanah we make him a king because he resigns at a Rosh Hashanah and we renew his kingship. So the Tzemach Tzedek says that it says in the Kabbalah of Arizal, says in Pri Etz Chaim, that in a small way this happens every single day. You go to sleep at night, so does God. Finished. According to Kabbalah, with the Zohar, Tira de Gan Eden Stimun. At night they close the doors of heaven. The doors of Gan Eden are closed. They don't let anybody in until the next morning. Comes the next morning, you have to start over. So the daily recitation of Kriya Shema is similar to the yearly blowing of shofar. Okay, that's what's going to happen. Or to say it in the Maimon. Since we understand that Kriya Shema is Ratzu, that's running towards Hashem to tap into Him, so to speak, from the source. And Shemona Esrei is Shuv. Once we, so to speak, tap into Him, we bring Him down into every aspect of our life. We now compare this to Rosh Hashanah and the whole year. Rosh Hashanah, we renew our relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and during the rest of the year, we live this relationship. So in a microcosm, in a little tiny way, this is every year on Rosh Hashanah. So we're going to read it inside. Let's explain it. It says in Kabbalah of the Arizal. By the way, let me share this with you, okay? I got you guys on the computer, and you're so kind to come. Let me tell this to you, okay? Kabbalah is very hard to read. I'm digressing. I'm talking about books now, okay? Kabbalah is very hard to read. The reason Kabbalah is very hard to read is because it's written in code. It's not written out in longhand. It's written in a very few words. Especially the Kabbalah of the Arizal, particularly the Kabbalah of the Arizal. And because of this, it's very difficult to learn the language of the Kabbalah, to be able to understand what's written. But Kabbalah has one huge advantage over, let's say, Nigla. And that is it was written in an incredibly organized way. In other words, in Kabbalah Sfarim, you don't have to look for something. You know where you're going to find it. If you want to look for a Pirush on Matoivu or a Dainoilam or Baruch Sha'amar, or you know exactly where to find it, because Sifrei Kabbalah were written in an incredibly organized way. The Sfarim of the Arizal, the Sfarim of the Ramak, and even the Sfarim of the Kabbalah who came before are written in an incredibly orderly way. Okay, so now, there's a lot of Kabbalah Sfarim from the Arizal. There's a lot of Kabbalah Sfarim from the Arizal, okay? But they go into two broad categories. The Kabbalah Sfarim of the Arizal go into two broad categories. Now, this is not the whole story. There's a little bit more to it, but this is enough of the story for this to be useful to you, okay? The names of the two categories of the Sfarim and Kabbalah of the Arizal are Hakdomis and Kavanas. Hakdomis, Hey Kuv Dal Ben Bav Taf, like introductions, and Kavanot, the Kavanah, the meaning of the concepts in Kabbalah. The difference between Hakdomis and Kavanas is Hakdama is a map of Seder Ishtalshalos. The Arizal has Sfarim that are called Hakdomis, which is a map of Seder Ishtalshalos. It starts from the top, goes all the way till the bottom. Every chapter is a different world, every chapter is a different idea, until you go into the realms of Klippa and Gehenim and Asiya and you name it. It's called Hakdamas. The other is called Kavanis or Kavanot. Kavanis means meditations. And the Kavanis is connected to life. So that's like a Siddur, okay? How does a Siddur work? The first thing a Siddur does is it discusses with you what you do on a regular day. So if you'll open up the Sefer HaKavanis, it'll talk to you about Negelbasser and Moidani and getting up and Tikei Chatzos. So go through the day from the beginning to the end. And it's very detailed and explains every piece of davening and how to bench and how to eat and how to wash. There's a big discussion amongst Kabbalah how you're supposed to learn Torah each day, for example. After you do every day, then you talk about every Shabbos. After you talk about Shabbos, you start talking about Yom Tov. You start with Pesach, Shavuos, Sukkot, Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur. Then you have the fast days, and then of course you finish with Chanukah and Purim. So the Sefer HaKavonis, the Shar HaKavonis of the Arizal takes the Hakdamas and puts them into life. Hakdamas means to understand the map of Seder Ishtalshalos as Kabbalah understands it. Kavanas means how that map is journeyed upon, how that map is sojourned, how that map is traversed in different times and in different activities. When do you reach Atzilus? When do you reach Bria? When do you reach Kesed? And all of these little details are discussed in the Kavanas. Okay, so there's two types of Sfarim. Hakdamot and Kavanot. Hakdamas and Kavanas. Now, the writings of the Arizal were not written by the Arizal. The writings of the Arizal were written by the Talmidim of the Arizal. First Reb Chaim Vital, and then later on he had a son whose name was Reb Shmuel Vital, who wrote or copied a later draft of the Arizal's writings. According to people who studied this stuff, and I don't know how reliable it is, the writings of the Arizal were written over as many as 5 times. This draft, after they wrote it once, and they corrected it, wrote it again, they corrected it, wrote it again, they corrected it, wrote it again. And we have a number of drafts. In other words, they didn't just print the final draft of Kisvei Arizal, they printed several different drafts of Kisvei Arizal, okay? We know of 3 or 4 different drafts, but they write, I have a sefer with a long introduction that discusses Kisvei Arizal, and he writes that there's 5 different drafts of Kisvei Arizal. The most famous draft of Kisvei Arizal is what you know as Eitz Chaim and Pri Eitz Chaim. Eitz Chaim means the tree of life, and Pri Eitz Chaim means the fruit of the tree of life. Eitz Chaim and Pri Eitz Chaim are Hakdamas and Kavanas respectively. Eitz Chaim, the tree of life, is about Hishtalshalos. Pri Eitz Chaim, the fruit of the tree of life, is about Kavanas, how you get up in the morning, how you daven every day, how you daven Shabbos, Yom Tif, Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, fast days, or the Chanukah Purim, and so on. Okay, that's an earlier draft of Kisvei Arizal. The last draft of Kisvei Arizal is called the Shmoina Sha'arim. The final draft of Kisvei is called the 8 Gates, Shmoina Sha'arim. It has 8 different sections. This was written by Rabbi Shmuel Vital, the son of Rabbi Chaim Vital. When he passed away, he actually buried it with him. I'm mixing up the details here. The bottom line is they made a special tefillah. They got special permission. They literally exhumed him and they took out the Shmoina Sha'arim, took it out of the ground, and now it's available in print. The Alter Rebbe, for example, who lived more than 200 years ago, didn't have all the Shmoina Sha'arim. He only had the earlier draft, and this creates a lot of controversy in how people understand Kabbalah today, because in Chassidus Chabad, we don't only quote the Shmoina Sha'arim, we quote also the Eitz Chaim and the Pri Eitz Chaim. So this is the basic idea, that the Kisvei Arizal were written over a number of times. The draft, which is the most famous, is called Eitz Chaim and Pri Eitz Chaim. The final draft, which is considered the most reliable draft, is called Shar HaHakdamos and Shar HaKavanos. Shar HaHakdamos means the gate that talks about Seder Ishtalshalos, and Shar HaKavanos means the gate that talks about the Kavanos of Tefillah. So when you read here 5 lines from the bottom, Ubir Hadvarim Hinim Evo Pri Eitz Chaim, now you know what that means. Pri Eitz Chaim means the fruit of the tree of life. The tree of life would be the Arizal's Eitz Chaim, which is called Hakdamas, talks about Ishtalshalos. And Pri Eitz Chaim, the fruit of the tree of life, this would be the Shar HaKavanos, that talks about the meditations. Okay, so I gave you a little bit of book information, which is good to have always. So before Pri Eitz Chaim, it says in the writings of Arizal. By the way, if anybody has any questions or comments, you're free to interrupt. This is not a talk to the pictures session. It says in Kabbalah, every single day we have something which is like a Reish Hashanah. The Hainu this means Shem Reish Hashanah, just like a Rosh Hashanah. And Rosh Hashanah, everything goes back to the beginning. Everything goes back to the beginning means Hashem disengages. Hashem distances himself from the world. And afterwards you have to rebuild the relationship between Hashem and the world, which is called building up Zun, Ze'eram and Venukva Shehem, because Ze'eram and Venukva and Zun are Meker Chayes Ha'elam is the source of life for all the worlds. V'chulu says the same is also true Mamish. Every single day in an individualized way. The idea that everything goes back to the beginning, which means in colloquial language, Hashem quits, and we have to renew his interest in the world. Mitzvahs, and it's the idea of these mitzvahs of Kriyas Shema, Shema is just like Shofar is renewing the life for a year, Kriyas Shema renews the life for a day, and then comes Shemini Esrei, which is, I guess you would call it, bringing that life into the world, and so forth. Does somebody want to say something? I heard a voice.
You kind of answered my original question, but wouldn't you say that, if Hashem would even quit for 1 second, not even a second, like one blink of an eye, then the whole entire island would just not do this anymore?
Yes, of course. And we're going to get to that momentarily. We're going to talk about it. It's part of what's going to happen today. Okay, just give me a minute. Okay? Forgive me. May Azef, thank you for coming. B'chlal, when a student listens to his teacher, he's doing his teacher a favor. This is above and beyond. This is chesed shalemis. Thank you for coming to learn Chassidus. We're the last lines in 238. Mamish, the last lines. Okay? Let's talk about Rosh Hashanah first. We'll get to Krishma later. Let's talk about Rosh Hashanah first. Rosh Hashanah hu betchila histalkus v'aliyas hachayis. The beginning of Rosh Hashanah is a departure and an ascent of life. In other words, there's a disengagement of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, so to speak, Adam HaKadosh, to the first source. Who was the first source? Hashem. Who ha'ed ein safe ba'atzmusei u'muhusei mamish. This goes on godliness in its condition, which is called atzmus, and its condition, which is called muhus. Okay, I'm giving you these translations one more time. Next time, I'm going to expect you to know them. Atzmus means in relationship with self. So atzmusei means how koyachal Hashem exists in relationship with himself. And I translate the word muhus as substance. The koyachal, the interest of Hashem in the world, departs to the first source, which is Ein Seif, Atzmus, and Hus Mamish. Now, Meir Zev, notice. Now, I'm not going to expect Melly to know this because he wasn't here during the earlier shiurim. If you remember the earlier parakim, the Rebbe used to say Muhus v'Atzmus. Here it says Atzmus and Hus. Did you notice? I think there's something here. What is here, I don't know, but the Tzemach Tzedek always, when he talked about the Eibishter, used the word Muhusei v'Atzmusei. Here he uses the word Atzmusei and Muhus. And I'm reading on. Last line, 2:30, and afterwards, it returns, and it comes down from there. A ray, and a life, which is new, mamish. In other words, it's not that you get the old thing back, you get something different. Leyes, to effect that it should happen. Binyan hayud sfides mechodosh, to rebuild the 10 spheres from new. Turn to page Kuf Chaf now, please. By rebuilding the light and the vessels. You don't really rebuild the light. Light doesn't need to be rebuilt. Light needs to simply have a candle on which to flicker. You rebuild the vessels and the light returns. The most important thing is Liyas Binyan HaNukva, to build up what's called the female, Malchus. Nukva means female, which is Malchus of Atzilus. She is the source of Chayas, Elmas, and Efrat, the life of the worlds which are separate from godliness. And once it's reconstructed with a new form, then in Shmini Atzeres we get new seed. Shmini Atzeres is the beginning of according to Kabbalah, every year in Shmini Atzeres, the neshamas that are going to be born that year are conceived, and on Shvi Shal Pesach, all the neshamas that are going to be born that year are born. There's a Kabbalistic concept of conception and birth for neshamas. The Rebbe said, Friedrich Rebbe said, that the happiest day of the year by the Rebbeim was Shvi Shal Pesach. The happiest day of the year by the Rebbeim was Shvi Shal Pesach. So somebody once asked the Rebbe that he doesn't understand where you saw that happiness. So the Rebbe told him, you were by the Friedrich Rebbe, you should remember it. So he says to the Rebbe, that's exactly why I'm asking, because I didn't see it. So the Rebbe asks him, tell me, when it says in Kabbalah that on Shabbos the worlds go to a higher level, did you see that? So he said, the fact that you didn't see the Friedrich Rebbe Simcha doesn't mean that the Simcha wasn't there. But according to Kabbalah, after Malchus is rebuilt, on Shmini Atzeres, the conception, the initial step of creation of the neshamas for the new year happens, and it's finished on Shvi Shal Pesach, so the neshamas are born. Okay, I'm reading on. This new life, May 18 Seif, which comes from Koyach, the Eibishter himself, but Rosh Hashanah, 3 lines on top of the page. It happens primarily through Shayfer. It is well known, and it's explained. The Kisvei HaKedesh and the holy writings, from the Alter Rebbe. The Tzemach Tzedek was the Alter Rebbe's grandson. The Tzemach Tzedek was a Makabel Risha of the Alter Rebbe. Tzemach Tzedek considered himself a student of the Alter Rebbe. This is a weird thing. In Chabad Chassidus, you have a first generation, a second generation, and you don't have a third generation. You have a second generation. The Tzemach Tzedek's Chassidus is also going back to the Alter Rebbe. The Tzemach Tzedek was Makabel Risha from the Alter Rebbe. And he says, in the Alter Rebbe's Maimorim, he talks about this business of Binyan HaMalchus. It's hinted to, it's alluded to in short. The letter in Tanya is basically letter number 14. The whole process of when Hashem quits, Yiblo Shef, you create a new interest, and then a new life is brought into the world. Stop. That's it. The next words are already speaking about Kriyas Shema on a daily basis. Let's have our Rosh Hashanah conversation, okay? Hey, son, I give you a pledge that I'm doing this only today. Mitzvah Thursday, we're not going to continue talking about Rosh Hashanah. We're not going to spend our week in Rosh Hashanah. We're doing this for one day. We had conversations in Rosh Hashanah earlier this year, so we're doing this in one day, okay? So I'm going to spend a few minutes explaining this, and then that'll be it. Melly, you good?
Yeah.
Okay, Baruch Hashem. In Chassidus and in Torah, there's two Hebrew words. That mean very different things. One is the word melech, melucha, king, and the other is the word moishel, or memshala, which basically means dictatorship. Now, the connotation of dictatorship, when you say someone's a dictator, he sounds like a bad guy, okay? When we use the word memshala, and we translate it roughly, we translate it basically as dictator, we don't necessarily mean a dictator walks around with a gun and shoots people ad hoc. We mean anybody whose rulership over the people is not by their choice. And I'm going to explain to you what I mean, okay? A king is a man who, number one, is not interested in being a leader. He's smart enough to know that one of the least honoring roles a human being in life can be to be involved in politics, to be involved in social work, to be a leader, a government leader. Because if you want to be involved in government, you have to sacrifice your life, and in many, many cases, you even have to sacrifice your integrity. So a king is a guy who's smart, very smart, and he has no interest in being in that position. Why? He doesn't want the responsibility, and he's afraid of the corruption. He doesn't want to be ruined by it. I am learning perek echad layom in Rambam. Yesterday I learned perek beis of Hilchos Malachim. Those of you who are learning 3 prakim in Rambam, in a couple more days we're going to catch up. And then the Rambam discusses the reality of being a king, the dangers, the risks, the pitfalls, the mistakes that can be made, etc., etc., etc. A person who is a king has enough seichel to say, a person who's that smart that I don't want it. I don't want it. So the people come to this guy. They come to this man. And they beg him. They beg him. And they convince him, and he becomes their king. Okay, that's the story in short. Now, if a guy says, I don't want to do something, how are you going to change his mind? So I'm not interested. I have teenage children too, by the way. I mean, you guys don't know what teenagers are, but you may have relatives who know teenagers. It's a special creature. They say it's the closest animal to the human species. I couldn't be bothered. I'm not interested. If a person's not interested in being a king, how are you going to change his mind? So Chassidus offers an incredibly fascinating idea, a really weird, mystical, psychological concept. And this weird, mystical, psychological concept is the following: that every human being, every person, has in his nefesh, has in his character, a midah that's called a roimamus. The English translation of roimamus is exalted. The Hebrew translation of exalted is the roimamus. The English translation of roimamus is exalted. The Hebrew translation of exalted is roimamus. Should I continue explaining myself, or we all understand that we don't know what we're talking about? People use words nobody even cares. Exalted is such a wonderful word. I feel so smart. I said a word with 3 syllables. Ain't cleaning it. 4 syllables. I don't even know how many. Roimamus means the emotion of feeling higher than other people. It's not gaiva at all. Roimamus is the feeling of being higher than other people and therefore responsible for them. Like in America, you have something called a patrician, a person who comes from noble birth, who grew up in luxury, or grew up with wealth. So one of them are very selfish. Some of them have a sense of obligation. God has given me so much opportunity. I have to get involved in politics. I have to do what I can to help America continue to look after people, to think about the underprivileged, and to remember those that everybody forgot, and so on. There's a human emotion called the roimamus. There's a human emotion called being made to feel higher than everybody else and therefore responsible for them. This weird midah of roimamus is quite different than gaiva, because it doesn't separate you from the people. It makes you responsible for the people. And this weird midah of roimamus cannot be self-aroused. You have it, I have it, he has it, even he has it. I'm not telling you who even he is, okay? Okay, every human being has in his nature this idea to be lifted up emotionally, to be made responsible for the people. But there's a catch. You cannot reveal it yourself. Only somebody else can reveal it. So when you come to this guy who's smart enough to know that the last thing he wants to do is sacrifice his life and the life of his wife and children and become a politician, become a leader of men or women or people, and you convince him. There's a whole process of convincing, which I don't have time for, so I'm not going to give you all the details. The bottom line is this process of convincing is really the process of revealing this feeling of Revimus. To bring out that emotion that human beings have within their character to feel above and responsible for people. That's what a melech is. So here's a guy. You come to him and say, listen, our leader died. We need a new leader. Will you be our leader? He says, are you out of your mind? Why would I do that? There's nothing in it for me. And forget about nothing in it for me. I'm not worthy, and I'm not deserving, I'm not qualified, I'm not... The people, the old line, we want to hire the person who doesn't want the job. The person who wants the job we don't want. We don't trust him. So there's a process by which they bring out this feeling from that person. They bring out this midah of reimus from that person. And then the person accepts it. When they arouse in this person this feeling of reimus, when they arouse in this person this feelings of being above but responsible for all the people, he gives himself to the people completely. This is what's weird. Kings have all the power in the world. Kings, according to Jewish law, have more power than a prophet. They're more power than anybody. Kings have all the power. But kings don't even own the shirt on their back. Everything a king uses belongs to the people. Right? The famous quote from the Rebbe Chaim Mushka, which he said to the lawyer, the Sfarim belong to the Chassidim because my father belonged to the Chassidim. That's literally true. Because a Rebbe is like a king. And a Rebbe has all the power in the world. He can do whatever he wants. But his entire...
burn his clothing.
You have to burn his clothing. That's right. When a king dies, you don't even let another king use his possessions. Correct. You burn his clothing. One of the hardest halachas is his wife is not allowed to remarry. His wife's not allowed to even have chalitza. That's it. A king has...
Didn't someone that Rebbeim's parents get Rebbeim's parents?
No. The Rebbeim did not have a halacha of melech. They didn't have a din of a melech. It's an Indian of melucha. Didn't have a halacha of melech. They didn't have Mashiach. Didn't have Bez Nain Alf. Didn't have a Sanhedrin. Didn't have a Navi. Didn't have a Kohen Gadol. They're not halachically kings, but they were philosophically kings. Okay? If you can convince this guy, so the two sides of the coin are is he has all the power in the world, and he belongs to the people. He doesn't own himself. He's the property of the community. So the way it works is this. You come to this guy and say, please be our king. And he says to you, I'm not that stupid. Go find somebody stupid, no, from the job. I'm not taking it. But you say, no, we want Dafki you. And you call out of him this midas hamalucha, this emotion of feeling above and responsible for the citizenry, for the people. When that emotion is extracted from this person, and he agrees to become a king, he gives himself completely to the people. Completely. He doesn't keep anything for himself. He belongs to the subject. That's the concept of a melech. Okay? So, a king is somebody who's not interested. The people are interested. But when the people succeed in kinging him, he's theirs 100%. Are we clear about kings? Are we clear about kings? Are we clear about kings? Yeah? We're good. Now, what's a dictator? A dictator is what they call in America a man or a woman who wants a career in politics. That's all. I want to be a politician. I want to work for the people. I want to serve the people. I want to speak to the press. I want to speak in platitudes and in circles and in half-truths and, how do they say it? Blah, 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 blah. What comes after that? More blah, right? That's a politician. Rosh, in the Mishnah called the Roshos, political leaders. A dictator doesn't necessarily mean a man with a gun. A dictator, a politician, means a person that they want to lead the people. The people are not asking him, he's asking the people. So he comes to the people and says, vote for me. He comes to the people and says, give me your support or whatever. There won't be any food or water, or Chas v'shalom, I'll take a life, or 2, or 3, or 100, or 1,000, or 1,000,000. Rachmana litzlan, hoya lo yisi. And he imposes his will on the subject. So a king and a dictator are really very opposite. A king, you can almost say, is a hypothetical concept. It's a theoretical thing. It's not real in the world. Because a king is someone the people create. A dictator is somebody who asserts himself on the people. Now, let's talk about dictators. Whether the dictators through force, or the dictators through money, or dictators through coercion, through the power of convincing. A dictator's interest is himself. A dictator is not concerned with the people. He's concerned with himself. I want to be a leader. But in order to satisfy his desire, he has to provide. If you're a dictator, if you're a politician, if you're a guy named de Blasio, and you want to continue to Blasio all over New York, hot air or cold air, or I don't know what he's blowing, you have to satisfy the people. Because if you don't satisfy the people, they're going to kick you out. Which we're hoping that de Blasio is going to be blused in the way to California. Abinish, New York, yeah? So he has an interest in being a leader. He does enough to please the people to keep his job, but his fundamental interest is himself. So a king and a dictator are opposite. A king doesn't want the job, that's point A. If and when a king accepts the job, it's total. He belongs to his subjects 100%. He's their property. A dictator is the opposite. He wants the job. And even when he gets the job, his commitment to the people is not 100%. His commitment to the people is only as much as he needs to give them to keep his job. That's the way this works. Okay? So now, this goes back to Esan Nisim Shlita's question. Hashem created the world as a dictator. You're listening carefully. Hashem created the world as a dictator, as a Meshach. He wants the world to exist. He needs the world to exist. He wants something out of the world. And he gives the world just enough to stay in charge. How much of himself is the Eibush investing in the world as a dictator? Just enough to keep the world afloat. Okay? Then he gave us a mitzvah. It's called the Rosh Hashanah. It started with the first Rosh Hashanah, and the first man, his name was Adam and Eve, Adam and Chava. And that mitzvah is, make me a king. The Eibishter says to mankind, Tamlichuni Aleichem, make me a king. I don't want to be a dictator, I want to be a king. In other words, I don't want to be involved in the world in a limited way, because I need something out of the world. I want to be involved in the world. I want to belong to the world. Hashem says, I want to be the property of the citizens of the earth. If they make me into a king, if they can arouse in me this called the so-called midas haroimamos, this midah, which in English uselessly means exalted. And if you don't know, the Hebrew for exalted is reimamos, the English for reimamos is exalted, the Hebrew for exalted is reimamos, and then you make a line on top of that ad infinitum. Yeah? The idea that the Eibush says, I want to be above the people. I want to belong to the world as their king. That's what we do at Rosh Hashanah. When we blow shofar, we make Hashem into a king. Now, and a whole year, he's a king. What does a king mean? The Eibush belongs to the world. The Eibush belongs to the people. The Eibush belongs to those who do Torah mitzvah. The Eibush belongs not to the pizza shops and the ferry boats and airplanes and rockets. He belongs to the what's called Pnimius Ha'elamis, the world in as much as it serves him. Torah, mitzvahs, by Goyim, the Sheva mitzvahs, B'nai Noach, etc., etc. The Eibishter belongs to the world. And Rosh Hashanah he quits. Rosh Hashanah it ends. Or to say it in different words, when he agreed to be a king, he put in the contract he's a king only for 365 days. Then it's over. The contract was, the plan is, this tenure of kingship is lasting 1 year. At the end of this year, you're going to have to renew it. When it comes to Rosh Hashanah again, we do it again, over and over. So now, Asa, to answer your question, what happens to the world when the Eibush quits until he renews his kingship? He falls back to the dictatorial position, to be a dictator, which is how he made the world in the first place. for the first 5 days of the creation, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, Thursday night, and then early Friday morning until Adam and Chava were awake and aware and in a position to say, let's make Hashem into a king, Hashem Malach, Lavish, Lavish Hashem, and so on, until Adam and Chava, Erev Shabbos in the afternoon, which was Rosh Hashanah by day, so to speak, blew shofar, made David to the Melech, he was a dictator. And every Rosh Hashanah, he falls back into that position, and we renew the Maluch. Questions or comments? Okay, that was rather clear. I think it was clear. I think it was clear. Yeah? Mela, give me thumbs if you're good. Okay. How? What do the people do to make Hashem a king again? And the answer is they blow shofar. When they blow shofar, they realize Hashem's kingship. Because the concept of the shofar is a cry. It's a pleading. It's a begging. The concept of shofar is a yid cries out from the very depths of his soul on a level which is way above the brain, way above reason. I'm giving myself to you, you give yourself to me. That's what you do when you blow shofar. When you blow shofar, you are crying out to Hashem, I'll be yours if you be mine. That's basically what happens. And shofar Rosh Hashanah is total bittul. It's like hishtadchus, You know what the meaning of the word hishtadchus is? You go to the oil, there's something called hishtadchus. You know what hishtadchus means? I'll tell you. Hishtadchus means to be a carpet. Hebrew Asen. What's the Hebrew word for carpet?
The carpets?
Shatiach, shin, tes, yud, ches. Hishtadchus means to be a carpet. You know what people do to carpets? Anybody know?
Yeah.
You step on them. Hishtadchus means you lay down flat on the tzibur of a tzaddik. Flat. Vertical. Like a piece of mat. Rosh Hashanah, we're mishtateach. We bow to Hashem in such a way that we're flat on the ground and say to the Rebbe, if you want to step on me, go ahead. That's our way of saying to him, I'm going to give myself to you completely, and I want you to give yourself to me completely. And this is called Malchus. Malchus means an involvement of Hashem in the world which isn't forced. Malchus means an involvement of Hashem in the world which we choose. And in quotes, we arouse. When Hashem says, I will. When Hashem says, I do. When Hashem says, I'm in. The involvement of Hashem in the world is infinite. How much of God is involved in the world? That depends if he's a Moshel or a Melech. Rosh Hashanah, the theme, the mysticism of Rosh Hashanah is making Hashem a king, and the miracle tool to effect this is the shofar. So the cry of the shofar is our hishtadchus. It's our making ourselves into a rug for the Eibishter to step on if he chooses to, in submissiveness, in submitting to him and arousing from him the Yin HaMaluch. And it's represented by the shofar. So Rosh Hashanah comes, we blow shofar, and every year we play the same choreography. And he says, I will. Erev Rosh Hashanah, the tenure of the kingship runs out. I keep using the word he quits because I think the word quits wakes people up. But the original terms of the kingship expire. Hashem agreed to be a king for a year. When the year is over, it's not he stops, it ends. And we have to renew it. Every year Rosh Hashanah we renew his kingship, and each time we renew it, it's good for 1 year. Whether the year has 353 days, or 354 days, or 355 days, or 383 days, or 384 days, or 385 days, Rosh Hashanah, we make him a king for a year. Then it ends, it expires, and we renew it. Through shofar. Says the Rebbe, you should know, every day's Shema is a microcosm of Rosh Hashanah's shofar. Just like Rosh Hashanah's shofar makes him a king for a year, the daily recitation of Shema, which is a preparation for Shemoneh Esrei, so to speak, makes him a king for a day. Look inside. 4 lines from the top of page Kuf Chav. It can also be understood by a maskil. Maskil means by someone who is intuitive, someone who has good instincts, good chokhmah instincts. Bebechinas hama'ayin bezeh b'derech prat. Bebechinas hama'ayin is someone who thinks about this well. But b'derech prat, in a specialized way, in a specific way. Shebechol yom, each day. You probably should read it. B'bchinas hama'ayin zeh b'derech prat. Oh, no. I said it all wrong. You see this also in a more me'ain zeh. Similar, but not the same as Rosh Hashanah. B'derech prat specifically, and I'm reading inside. Shebachal yom every day. Sheba'amidas pasuk yidishin the Kriya Shema. We say the first pasuk of Kriya Shema. Now there's a parenthesis that I don't know what to do with, so I'm skipping it at the moment. I can't find the Gemara that speaks about this, so I'm skipping 2 lines. When we say Shema in the morning and we declare an infinite love for Hashem, which is what the word Ma'ed means. We know as well that when we say we're also having Mesiras Nefesh and Echad, so there's 2 Mesiras Nefesh. There's the Mesiras Nefesh of B'chol Ma'edecha, there's the Mesiras Nefesh of Echad. Hine, Ayidezehu Goyrem, through this a person causes Bechinas Aliyas Achayis, the ascent of life, Admak Arisha to the source, to the first source, which is Ein Sefer. So Rosh Hashanah, Tkiyas is to the year what Krishma is to the day. That's it. Tomorrow's no class, but Thursday we're going to learn this. Questions or comments?
I have a question, but not regarding the Bible.
Go ahead.
Oh, it's not regarding that.
Okay, but my answer could be I don't know. Just want you to understand that.
Okay. Why do we say Pil Lamatzach the Karach? What does Karach have to do with Til? Why is David Melch bringing Karach into Til?
He's not bringing Karach. He's bringing Bnei Karach into Til.
Yeah, saying, but who is Bnei Karach? Saying
the Bnei Karach were saved according to Rashi. They were the Bnei Karach were part of Karach's plot. And when they were falling into Gehenna, when they were falling into the ground, they did tshuva, and Hashem saved them. At the end of the 40 years, in the 40th year, they came back out of the ground. They rejoined the Jewish people, and one of their descendants is one of the greatest Jews who ever lived, a Jew by the name of Samuel. Shmuel HaNavi is a descendant of Bnei Korach. Now, the Sefer Tehillim, which says even in the Gemara, was written by 10 people. There are 10 contributors to the Tehillim. The most important one, of course, is David Melch himself. And one of those 10 guys, Asan, tell me his name. Asan Ezrachi, right? Asan, Eitan. One of the 10 is Asan. And then you have a bunch of people. We know who they are. Their names I mentioned them. You have Asaf, Shir Mizmah, Asaf, and so on and so forth. There are 10 contributors to the Tehillim. One of the contributors to the Tehillim is the Bnei Korach. They wrote some of the Psalms. And by the way, Moshe Rabbeinu is one of the contributors to the Tehillim as well. Okay? So the Bnei Korach are one of the 10 groups of people, 10 individuals who contributed some of the Kapitlach Tehillim to the Tehillim. This particular perek, Mem Zayin, which is Rosh Hashanah, is about all Elohim B'Sru Hashem B'Kel Shefer. That Hashem lowers himself to be above the world through Amidas too. So Psalm 47, which was said, Lam Natzeich of Nikerach Mizmeh, is about Hashem becoming a king through Shefer. And that's why we say this Kapitel Tehillim before Tkiyas. And there's Maimonic Chassidus almost at every pasuk. Give Chalanas Nachlaseinu with Gein Yankav Shira Yisela, All Elokim B'Sruah, the Shemoshe B'Zamokim Zameru, and so on. Every one of these psukim speaks to the idea of renewing Hashem's kingship.
Thank you.
Yep. And any other questions or comments?
That's it for me.
Okay, so there's no class tomorrow, but I'll see you Thursday, Mitzvah Hashem. Yes, thank you all for coming. You're doing a lot more for me than I'm doing for you. Trust me. Thank you for coming. I do appreciate it.
Thank you.